Hi everyone, good evening. Charlotte here from Enriching Environments and welcome to Top Tip Tuesday on Instagram Live. It's Tuesday evening, we are live here in Dubai, and this evening we are going to be talking about sibling rivalry. And this is the second Instagram Live we've done about sibling dynamic. The first was 2 weeks ago on Tuesday the 8th of February, and that one was about laying the foundation for a peaceful and harmonious sibling relationship, sibling dynamic. And this part, this second part of this two-part series, we're going to be specifically talking about sibling rivalry, conflict resolution, and how we can support our children in conflict resolution, between the siblings, 2 or 3 or however many siblings there are. So let me firstly recap. Hi everyone who's joining. Let me firstly recap what we talked about in the first session in this two-part series, and that was the sibling dynamic overall. So there's Wiggly, you can see Wiggly's tail, the Enriching Environments cat. The first session we covered the foundation, how we create more or less a peaceful environment, a home environment that actually nurtures the unique bond that siblings have, that nurtures this sibling dynamic from the start. And we looked at that within the foundations. Hi there. We looked at that within the foundations of the Montessori principles of creating an environment of respect of others, hi everyone joining, creating respect of others, creating respect for oneself, for the community, and for others in the community from the Montessori foundation, Montessori perspective. We talked about in that first session, we're just doing a recap of last a fortnight ago session, and we also talked about how we don't make children share, and we don't compare them, so we don't engage in any comparison. So we're building from that foundation of non-competition between children. So that's what we covered in our first session, which is really building the foundation. How do we from the start grow this peaceful community at its foundation? Hi Yoga House, how are you? How do we start that from the beginning? And in this session, we're specifically going to talk about sibling rivalry and conflict resolution, and how we can best support our children. Because with all the questions I have from parents, I'm in this beautiful toddler community at the moment here in Dubai, and the questions I'm getting from parents around siblings are always, okay, we've got the foundation, but what do we do when things go wrong? How do we support when there is conflict? When do we intervene? How much should we intervene? And actually, when we intervene, what do we do? When we're in the heat of the moment, or the children are in the heat of the moment, what do we do? How do we say? How do we respond? How do we respond in a way that is respectful and does honor each child? How do we ensure each child is seen and heard and validated in those situations? So, and there's also a third thing, which I had from one of the parents of one of the toddlers in my class, was how do I deal with, I hate my sister, I don't want a little sister, I have to share you with my little sister and I don't want her anymore. So this is one of the questions one of the parents in my class asked me. So yeah, we've got 3 things to cover this evening for sibling rivalry. So when to intervene, or if to intervene. When we do intervene, how do we do it? And thirdly, what do we do with I hate my sister, I hate my brother, I wish I didn't have a baby brother, sister, all that type of language, which can start, from when the second or third sibling's little, and continue, to when probably they're much older, 8, 9, 10 years old as well. So let's begin. Thank you for joining me. I know people will pop in and out. So when to intervene when there's conflict between siblings, between our children. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, I'd like us to firstly to take a step back, and it's really good to when we consider this whole topic of sibling rivalry, where check in with ourselves. Where are we with this? Do we have siblings? How was sibling rivalry handled when we were little? Is there conflict? Was there conflict at that time? And now as adults, we may have good relationships, but are there bits and pieces left over from our childhood that, we always felt that our brother was the favored one, or the sister was the favorite one, or maybe we were the favorite one? Because anything that happened with our siblings when we were little is going to have an impact, of course, on how we deal with our children and their sibling dynamics and their conflict resolution and sibling rivalry. So firstly, it's really good to just check in with ourselves, with our body. How do we feel about these things? Don't wait till the heat of the moment to think, oh goodness, this is interesting, why am I responding in this way? Think about how we were responded to, how we feel about dynamics. Do we see one child as the victim and one child as the perpetrator? And is that something that's replaying from our childhood? Do we feel a sense of helplessness? And all of these things, none of them are right or wrong. It's just really interesting for us to know where we stand with these things, so that when the situations arise, we can do our best to look at it from an unbiased perspective as is humanly possible, bearing in mind we're all human. So firstly, when to intervene. Definitely see where we are in this to start with before we do anything else. Know what our triggers are, know what happened in our childhood with our siblings, and know where our wounded parts are, know where our soft spots are, that we know a situation is going to be difficult for us. And so when to intervene. Obviously, depending on the age, it's going to vary, but say, obviously, if an older child is hurting a baby or an infant or a toddler who isn't able to defend themselves, doesn't have the language to talk it through, doesn't have the ability to defend themselves, then of course we must stop that. Then as they get older, it gets a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more interesting. And this part of this will come back to what we talked about 2 weeks ago, that once we have a crawling baby, and a crawling baby will go over and be very interested in the older children's work, and often snatch their work and break their work or knock down the tower and all those things, which is normal for babies to do. And this is where our role is to step in with one of respect and say, she's playing with that at the moment, she's playing with this at the moment. And if there is an issue developing between a curious baby and exploring toddler and then a preschooler who's really, really focused, that's for us to step in as much as possible in those scenarios. But as they get older, we want to give them the gift of problem solving and conflict resolution as much as is possible. Hi, Emma. And so we can know a couple of things. Is that one, trust in their innate goodness. Every child is born innately good, and they're going to have their ups and downs, but know that every child is innately good, and any feelings that they have, any behavior that comes up, all behavior is communication. It's as black and white as that. So how they behave to other people, to their siblings, is a reflection of how they feel about themselves. And if we can take our emotion and our feeling out of any attachment we have on their behavior and just know it's communication, then that can make things a lot easier for us to deal with and a lot easier for us to handle. So all behavior is communication. Whether or not we like the behavior, whether or not we like what our child is saying or doing, it's just communicating how the child is feeling in that moment. And so when to intervene. A really good thing to do before we do intervene is to just stop and take a moment to make sure we really understand what's happening. Observe what is happening. Sit down on the floor and get to their level and just sit with them. Because if we're going to intervene in any way, we need to really be sure that we're connecting with each child so we can respond from the best version of ourselves and they know that they are supported before we say anything, before we do anything. So get down low if they're small, and come from a place of curiosity and observation, not with our superhero cape, not with our police officer's hat on, not from a place of you 2 or 3 are doing something wrong and I know better. approach these situations with curiosity. That's number one. Two, know that our children are perfectly capable of handling a huge amount of things. Oftentimes they come to us time and time again for conflict resolution because they don't have the language, they don't have the words, we haven't given them the gift of being able to problem solve. And so whenever we have these situations, as much as possible, and they're running to us, they're asking for our help, we've got to give them back to us. We've got to give it back to them as a gift. And the words, the language you can use is, I can see you two are having a tough time working out the Lego, or working out taking turns, or I can see that you can't agree on this puzzle, or I can see that you're finding it difficult to get on with each other today. Try and keep the language as neutral as possible. Literally observe what you see. I can see that you're both feeling really frustrated. Your body language is telling me you're both really irritated with each other. Your body language is telling me you're frustrated. Keep it factual, what you can actually see. And then leave it at that. And just, if you can, sit down with them and just see what it is. And they're both going to go, she did that, he did that, she did this, he did that. And it's going to be all coming at you, all coming at you. Again, for us, take a deep breath. Just see where they are in the moment. See where you're feeling at the moment. And allow each of them to speak. It's really important that we allow each child to speak, to be seen, to be heard, to be validated. Just that connection with us, and just them feeling that we respect them and we respect what they're going through, whether they're right or wrong. And it's not about who's right and who's wrong and who started it. It's just about each child feeling seen and heard and validated in that moment. So listen in these situations. Try to listen more than we speak. Try to see the child in front of us and what they're struggling with. So listen to both sides of the story, and don't try and fix anything. Just say, it's called the imago dialogue, when you basically repeat what's been said back to you. So what I'm hearing is, you really wanted that to watch that show, and you really want peace and quiet, and the TV's bothering you, and you want to really watch this TV program, and you're really enjoying it, and you need to have it up loud because it's got really good music. I can see that this is a difficult situation for both of you. I wonder how we can find a way forward. And again, give it back to them as a gift. State exactly, paraphrase the position of each child. Obviously, you might have more than two children. Paraphrase the position of each child. I wonder how we can find a way forward. I wonder how we can solve this. If they're used to you solving things and saying, okay, take turns, or you sit here and you sit there and you go outside, or you go to the shed, or what have you, they are going to really, really resist trying to problem solve themselves. But this is a muscle. Problem solving and conflict resolution is a muscle that can be developed, that needs to be developed. So really, it's giving it back to them as a gift every single time. You can't solve the problem for them. And the more that we do, we don't have the right answer. Hi, Jean-Louise. We don't have the right answer for each child in the moment. All we can do is give it back to them. Say, I can see, hi, Tatenda. We can see, this is difficult at the moment. You want to do this and you want to do that. Give it, hi, Huda. Give it back to them as a gift. How can we find a way forward? Tell me more. What else would you like? What else would you like? Get them to talk as much as they can, because as we know with us as adults, the more we can speak, the more we can verbalize our frustrations, it calms us down. It takes us out of our amygdala. We can start to use our prefrontal cortex for problem solving and reasoning. The more they can get out those feelings, the less they're going to want to splurge them on each other, that anger and frustration. Keep them talking as much as they can, as much as you can. And more often than not, things will come to a natural resolution through the talking through the problem. They'll find a resolution. And also, if they don't and they're still really angry with each other, it's okay for them to be in that space of not having a resolution straight away. Think of arguments we have with partners or friends. We more often than not, don't get a resolution straight away, and that's okay. And we don't need to fix this for our children. We can say, I don't know what to do in this situation. I didn't see what happened. I know that both of you want different things, and I can see it's really hard. Bags of empathy, bags of validation. But we mustn't give them the answer of how to resolve the conflict, because otherwise they'll just keep coming back to us. Hi, Nada. When we, and you know, we can start this from a really young age. I've just thought of that because Nada has 2 little children. It's really important that we can start doing this from a young age. You know, I can remember from when Harry was a baby, a crawling baby, and Olivia suddenly started to find him a little less cute because he could come over and take what she was playing with. Even from that young age, I would say to Harry, Olivia's playing with this at the moment, and Olivia, I can see it's hard, you know, it's hard for Harry not to touch, but I understand you don't want him to touch what you're playing with. I'm right here. I'm going to observe you both. I'm going to do the best I can to support you both in this situation. I know it's hard. Just use empathy for each child. And from a little 6-month-old baby, you know, they start to understand that respect that I can pay to both of them, or 3 or 4 of them, how many you have, that trickles down, and it really does build this foundation. And so when we start using this language with them all the time, every day, you're not going to solve problems for them. You're going to support them and you're going to validate them. You know how hard it is, but this is what helps them with conflict resolution when they're older. So, you know, Harry's almost 5 and Olivia's 7, and more or less a lot of the time they're able to sort out stuff between them. Obviously, when they're really, really tired or they're hungry, no one can sort anything out. When I'm tired and hungry, I can't sort anything out. But for the most part, the more we can practice this type of validating language, this empathy, and giving it back to them, I wonder how we can solve this problem. You want this and you want this. How can we solve this problem? I know it's really, really hard. You both want to use that at the same time. You both want to play with that. You wanted pancakes and you wanted scrambled eggs, and you both want to make it in the same frying pan at the same time. I wonder what the solution is. Let's find a way forward together. All of this lovely language, it's building neural pathways. It's really, it's so powerful to just little by little, step by step, let them see that they are capable, contributing human beings. And I know I say it every week, we want to help them to be capable and compassionate and contributing human beings, and all this type of language of not fixing things for them, just being their cheerleader, being their sidekick, being the person who believes in them, just in the language that we say, just in the way that we have this innate confidence that they have these skills. And it's for us to guide them and ensure that they're on track, and you know, the language they use with each other is respectful, all of those basics. But we know that if we give them the opportunity to practice and problem solve, then all of this will come forth. They will be able to bring forth these skills. Let me have a sip of water whilst I just check my notes. So we've got, how to intervene and when to intervene. Yeah, we've covered that. We've got to check ourselves first, how to intervene. We trust in their innate goodness. We do as little as possible. We talk less and listen more. Oh yes, and the final point which I've been asked is about how we handle it when one child says, "I hate my baby sister. I hate having a sister. Since I had my baby brother, you don't coddle me anymore." All of this type of language. This is completely normal. What we mustn't do is correct the child that said that. We mustn't say, "Oh, you don't really mean that," or "you shouldn't say that, that's not kind," or, you know, "you're bad, you're really horrible," anything like that. We mustn't use that type of language. Again, the less we say, the better. We can agree with, not agree, we can validate what they're saying. We can say, "Yeah, I can, hi there." We can say, "I can see you're really upset. I know this is bothering you." And if it's something specific, like, "Oh, because you're spending so much time feeding baby, you know, I don't get to have a cuddle anymore." So it's an older child and it's very specific, something to do with feeding or something to do with putting the baby down for naps or something specific that they can identify that's bothering them. Then you mirror that back to them saying, It does take a long time to do the feeding, doesn't it, with a newborn? And you're being really, really patient. And I'll be with you as soon as I can. But agree with them. We don't want to say, oh, it doesn't take that long, or just be patient. Just agree it does take a long time to feed and change and look after a newborn. And it is hard for an older child to get used to that. Or accept that. So bags and bags of empathy. Again, we don't want to be correct them saying you shouldn't say that, it's unkind. It's just very much, and then we can go a step further and say, you must be really upset to say something like that. How can I help? What do you need? Do you need a cuddle? All of that language, saying we see them and they hear them. We know that they're struggling. We can tell from the words they're saying, from their body language. They might be crying. They might be having a meltdown. They might be stamping and banging and being angry, and all of that's absolutely fine. What we want to do is just hear them, see them, validate them, know that their feelings matter, so they know their feelings matter. And because when they say, I hate my brother, or I don't want my sister, or I wish my baby wasn't here, they don't really mean that, but what they are communicating, all behavior is communicating. All behavior is communication. They are communicating their discomfort or their displeasure in that moment. So we can hear them, we can validate them, and we can ensure that we set aside time. We set aside 10 minutes to read with them after you've breastfed baby, or some special time with each child, where even if it's in the same house, you don't have an option to go out and take your child on a play date on their own, but within the house you can set a sand timer and say, this is my special time with Harry, this is my special time with Olivia. I started doing that last summer actually. It really, really helps just to have 10 minutes focused time with each child, during the summer when we were at home all together, and both of them wanted my attention at the same time. So that's what I did to help them manage those feelings that they had of, I don't get any time with me, I always have to share you, all of those feelings of discomfort. So it's honor what they're feeling, show empathy for where they are. It's perfectly fine for them to feel whatever they are feeling. And then in the broader, bigger sense of the whole, zooming out the whole of this vision, is we're cultivating empathy. We are offering them the gift of problem solving for themselves, and we are developing their emotional intelligence. And these are really valuable life skills to develop and life lessons to learn from a really, really young age. Conflict resolution and problem solving is I think it's part of the human experience. It's things we're always going to have to deal with and overcome, and it can be so beautiful if we can support our children from such a young age in these skills of how to make things work within a team, within a community, within a home, between siblings. How can we create that dynamic of respect and non-competition? So I hope you've enjoyed this evening's session. If you have any questions, then do type them now. Thank you for everyone who stayed the course. I can see there's quite a lot of you. And I'll do my 3-point recap. Hi, Jean-Louise. This is a great question about perception of fairness. That's not fair. She got more. Again, from how I see it, it's really, I can see that's upset you. I can see that's how you feel. That I can see that doesn't feel fair for you. And again, even if they had exactly the same size piece of pizza or whatever it might be, or the same piece of chocolate cake, or the same amount of, I don't know, blueberries or what have you, if it doesn't seem fair to them, then that's their perception, and it's not for us to try and talk them out of that perception. Usually it means there's something else going on underneath. So maybe our job is to be a detective, and then kind of later on that day, and usually you get days like that, don't you, where it's kind of like a nagging thing, that's not fair, she got more than me. And so what we can do is do a little bit of detective work. And, in the moment, we must validate. I feel that we must validate whatever they're feeling. His pizza slice was bigger. Yeah, I can see that really, really upset you. You feel like he had more pizza than you. And I'm really sorry. And then again, gift it back. Is there anything is there anything you'd like to do? How would you like to solve this problem? And leave it open to them. You never know. Some children will say, it's okay, you can have hi Joe, you can have a little bit of mine. Children are amazingly resourceful and incredibly generous. And when we give them this gift of giving the problem back to them every time, sometimes one child might want to give a bit of their pizza to the other one, and sometimes not, but more it's like giving it back to them, validating. I can see you feel that isn't fair, and I'm sorry that you're upset. What can we do differently? And see what happens. So that's what it feels like to me, is just this empathy, this validation, anything that comes up with that. And also knowing that if your child is in the 6 to 12 period, that's the intense, sensitive period for sense of moral justice and fairness. And my daughter is 7, and that's really what we're working with at the moment. If I stay 1 minute longer with Harry at bedtime before I come to her, and she perceives that there's it's been unequal, he's had more time with me than her, then she jumps on that straight away. In fact, even though we use a sound timer, she still says that every single night, it's not fair, you spend more time with Harry than with me. But I know that's her sensitivity because she's 7. So know that between the period of 6 and 12, particularly heightened between 6 and 9, is this sense of fairness, and they will challenge everything to check whether it's fair. Their sense of justice, moral justice, is really growing in this time. So it's a very, very sensitive time for them. So they will perceive a lot to be unfair. So if your children are in that age, that could be what's going on there. But know that they just want to be seen and heard and validated in those times, and offer them a way that they can suggest to do it differently, to make it more fair. And know that their version of fair might not be the same as ours. And know, secondly, that sometimes no matter what we do, it might not be enough. It might be that they are struggling with whatever they're struggling with at that time, and there's nothing we can do to make it better. And again, that is a gift to give back to them in terms of problem solving, in terms of conflict resolution. When things don't go the way that we really, really want, the way that we plan, how do we deal with that? How do we bounce back from that? What's our window of recovery, as it were, when we are disappointed, when we feel that something's unfair and it's nothing that can be fixed? So these are really all valuable life lessons for our children, and tough ones as well. Sibling dynamics is really intricate, and then there's all our stuff coming into it as parents as well. And as I said right at the beginning, from our childhood, from our siblings, things that we may feel have been fair or unfair, or whether we were the favourite or where we weren't the favourite. So it's really multi-layered. But I hope I've given you some food for thought this evening to all of you. And I'll just recap on our 3 points. For conflict resolution, when we intervene is only when we are grounded in ourselves and know what baggage we're bringing to these conversations. How to intervene is listen more and say less, so say as little as possible. Gift them back, gift any problem back to them as a way to resolve conflict together, and trust in their innate goodness. And thirdly, whenever they feel unfairness, or whether they're pleasure, Jean-Louise, whenever they feel unfairness, whether they feel frustration, it's giving them back as empathy, validation. I can see why you'd feel that way. And what we're cultivating in the broad, under the broad umbrella of all of this, is empathy, problem-solving skills, and emotional intelligence. I think that's everything for this evening. Thank you so much for joining me. And where am I with everything? You can go to my website for my online courses and workshops and online meditations for children and for adults. And my book, The Montessori Mission, will hopefully be published at the end of next month. We've had a few delays, but we're still working on the background, in the background, behind the scenes on that. And I had first session of my nanny training program, hi Nada, last weekend, and that was really, really fab. And we had a really great time with some fantastic discussions. multicultural discussions as well, which is always really, really fascinating, that different people and different cultures bring different cultural heritage and traditions to these workshops, and it's just really amazing. The amount that all of us learn and I learn as well. It's a really beautiful space to be in, these communities we're creating here in Dubai. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you need anything, you know I am. You can send me a DM, you can message me on Instagram, or you can email me, say hello at enrichingenvironments.com. Thank you so much for joining me. Send in your questions for Top Tip Tuesday, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Have a beautiful week. Bye-bye.